They thought we were still crawling. That's the only way I can explain it. For centuries, the Galactic Empire kept Earth on a leash, not openly, not in the kind of way you'd see in history vids with chains and whips. No, this was cleaner, more elegant, more humiliating. Trade restrictions, tech ceilings, diplomatic observers. And when a human scientist even looked like he was getting close to breaking gravity or light speed, someone from the Galactic Council just happened to drop by his lab and make him disappear. Quietly, we were their pets. Smart, curious, a little dangerous if left alone, but manageable. Contained. Until we weren't. My name's Hal Trenken. I used to be a freight hauler. Well, a smuggler with a license, if we're being honest. Grew up in the scrap zones of New Tokyo orbit. Fed myself selling modified engine cores that could burn 6% hotter before they blew. I never planned to be the face of a rebellion. I damn sure didn't plan to be the first human to cross the Exo Rift in a ship not made by the Empire. But here we are. The ship. She didn't even have a name when we fired her up. No sleek name like the Empire's dreadnoughts. She was a slab of steel and rage, wired together with Earth's best stolen tech and a whole lot of guesswork. Took us 7 years to build her. 7 years of hiding from orbital scans, bribing alien officials, running cold in the shadows of moons to avoid detection. 7 years of pretending Earth was still obedient. They say humans adapt, but what they don't understand is that we don't just adapt, we remember, and we resent. We'd watched for years as other species soared through the stars while we were told we weren't ready, while they mined our resources and made deals that kept us primitive. But someone smarter than me, started feeding blueprints to the underground, whispered word about ancient drive cores, about warp tech buried under the ice caps in Europa, stolen long ago and erased from our history. We didn't want war. We wanted respect. But respect doesn't come from begging. It comes from shock, from doing the impossible in full view of the ones who thought you couldn't. So, the plan was simple. Suicidal, but simple. Cross the Exo Rift, the one place humans weren't allowed. The place the Empire guarded with killsats, beacon mines, and a fleet that could erase a moon. No human ship had ever made it across. Not alive. They thought we'd try to sneak through in a retrofitted Empire junker. They didn't expect the Scarhound. That's what we named her later, after she made it through the rift and ripped a hole in the Empire's smug little illusion. I remember the moment we hit the edge. Sensors went dead. Hull temperature spiked. You could feel her scream, not in the mechanical way, but in that deep bone rattle kind of way, like she was alive and angry. The rift was a wall of dark energy, crackling blue and black, pulsing like it had a heartbeat. No training sim prepares you for that. But she held. And when we burst out the other side, all our sensors fried, half the crew unconscious. But alive, we saw them. The Imperial Observation Fleet. 17 ships, not warships, not yet. They didn't need warships for humans. Their scanners probably saw us and laughed. One of them even sent a greeting signal, like we were lost cattle. Then we opened the Scarhound's core. They expected primitive plasma cannons or coil rifles. What they got was a gravitational lance, something the Empire banned 300 years ago because it was too unstable, even for war. We didn't care. We built it out of scavenged cores and black market alien physics. First shot tore a battleship in half. The second? It folded a cruiser into a neutron knot. And in that moment, I swear, the Empire freaked out. Ships began scattering, sending out panicked relays to command centers, like we were the anomaly. Like we were the ones breaking the rules. Maybe we were. But we didn't stop. We broadcast a message on every open frequency, wide band, translated into every galactic tongue we had on file. Earth is not your farm. We are not your children. And this is just our first ship. Then we turned around, rift behind us, black stars ahead. They say empires fall slow, but sometimes all it takes is one ship, one shot, and one species too stubborn to stay where it was told. We were in it now. The second we crossed the rift and melted two Imperial ships like they were made of wax, Earth stopped being a backwater planet and became a target. I knew it. Every man on the crew knew it. Even the damn Scarhound felt it. You could hear her humming different, like she knew the war we'd just started was going to rewrite the stars. We didn't stay to gloat. We didn't have the time. Their fleet wasn't built for us, but the Empire was never short on vengeance. And once they realized it wasn't a fluke, once they ran the sensor logs and saw what our ship had done, the how of it didn't matter. The who did. Hal Trenken, Earthborn, criminal, now apparently public enemy number one. Funny how quick you go from nobody to icon when you piss off the right tyrants. We pulled hard reverse thrusters, dumped heat into the void, and dropped low into the gravity shadows of 3 unnamed rocks spinning around an unregistered gas giant. No Imperial colony, no mining station, dead sector. The perfect place to disappear. For now. I walked through the Scarhound's spine, watching my crew work like devils. No one asked for sleep. No one complained. They'd seen what this ship could do, and more importantly, they'd felt what it meant. We were no longer waiting to be invited to the galactic table. We were flipping the whole damn thing. "Core's stable," Doctor growled, wiping grease from his knuckles. He was an old orbital rigger from the Europa Free Lines, bald, broad, and ugly enough to scare a Hrax into manners. "But we blew half the upper flow. Next shot like that, we're gonna cook her lungs." "Can you fix it?" I asked. He spat on the deck. "I can patch it. Fix it? Not unless you know a friendly black market AI engineer who owes you a favor." I didn't. And even if I did, that favor would come with blood attached. "Do what you can," I said. "And keep her cold. We're not firing that lance again unless we're ready to die." He grunted and went back to his tools. I made my way to the ops deck, what passed for a command center on the Scarhound. No glowing holograms, no polished chrome, just patched wiring, screens with dead pixels, and the stale stink of human sweat. But it worked, and in the right hands it terrified the Empire. Tyla was there. She manned comms, tall, quiet, scar across her throat from a run-in with an Imperial customs team that got too handsy. They took her voice, but not her fire. She signed to me fast, fingers flicking in Earthside shorthand. Incoming pings. 3 light jump echoes. Imperial design. No response pattern. I cursed under my breath. They'd tracked us. Of course they did. We knew the blast signature from the lance wouldn't stay hidden for long. Empire sensors could read the trajectory of a Proton 7 systems away. All we'd done was buy time. Maybe 2 hours, tops. "Full blackout," I ordered. "Shut down every system except life and internal dampeners. Let them think we bailed the ship or jumped out." Tyla nodded and got to work. The hum of the Scarhound dropped to a whisper. No power lights, no engine glow, just the quiet tension of 30 breathing men and women holding their fear behind their teeth. I sat in the dark. This was the part no one saw. The waiting. The dread. It's easy to paint us like heroes in the vids. Brave rebels charging the enemy lines, shouting slogans and wielding impossible tech. But the truth? We were scared. Not of death. We'd signed up for that. We were scared of failure. Of waking up tomorrow and realizing we'd hit the Empire with a single punch, but didn't have the muscle to throw the second. The comm screen blinked. Dim, no sound. Tyla signed again. They're scanning. Close. Less than 40K clicks. I watched the scan signatures crawl across the screen. 3 Imperial Recon-class frigates. Fast, lightly armed, but built with sensors that could see a gnat fart in a thunderstorm. One wrong twitch, and we were lit up like a flare in vacuum. They passed once, circled, slowed, and then they drifted on. No alarms, no gunfire, just empty space swallowing them whole. The whole deck exhaled at once. We weren't safe, but we weren't dead yet. I stood up, feeling my knees crack. "Get me a connection to Ren," I said. "Tight beam. Earthline code?" Tyla hesitated, then nodded. Ren was back on Earth, hidden in the old bunkers beneath the Andes, running what passed for our network of resistance cells. She hated me. Blamed me for getting her brother killed in a plasma fire last year. She wasn't wrong. But she also knew this ship, the Scarhound, was the only card Earth had left. The signal went live. Ren's face flickered into view. Harsh light. Sharp angles. No makeup, no softness, just a war-weary woman holding the weight of a planet in her stare. "You're late," she snapped. "We were being hunted." She rolled her eyes. "You are hunted, Hal. You put Earth's name on every warboard in the galaxy. The Empire's top relay just declared martial observation over the Sol system. They've sent a diplomatic fleet." I blinked. Diplomatic? They're calling it that. It includes 3 dreadnoughts. Tell me what kind of diplomacy requires orbital artillery. I felt the fire rise in my gut again. "They're trying to scare us," I said. "They don't have to try," Ren shot back. "You showed them we could fight. Now they're showing us we can't win." I leaned in, slow. "We're not going to win by playing by their rules. That's the point. We don't need to fight their war. We just need to make them bleed." She stared at me for a long second, then nodded once. "We've got 3 more ships nearing prototype phase," she said. "Not as powerful as the Scarhound, but enough to make a dent. Problem is, we don't have pilots, or safe launch zones." "I'll get you both." She raised an eyebrow. "How?" "By reminding every forgotten rock in this galaxy that Earth isn't the only species the Empire's screwed." There it was. The spark. Just a flicker, but enough. Ren smiled, barely. "I'll hold you to that." The screen went dark. We jumped systems the next day. Slow jump, not hyperspace. The Scarhound couldn't risk another flare signature. We limped through back alleys of space, systems even the Empire forgot about. Mining ruins, abandoned colony husks, junk fields of lost wars, and in the shadows, we started whispering. Not through holovids or broadcasts. No, we did it the human way. One contact, one angry station commander, one disgraced alien outpost begging for someone, anyone, to punch the Empire in the teeth. And they listened. Because it wasn't just humans the Empire had crushed. It was thousands of species, millions of voices too small to be heard, until someone showed them what defiance looked like. We weren't building an army. We were building a storm. But storms need lightning. We had one ship, one crew, one chance. And then came the message, scrambled, half-fried, but unmistakable. "Human vessel. This is Captain Varix of the Free Sector Armada. You are hereby invited to Parallax Station. We want to talk." Tyla replayed it 3 times. Free Sector. Old legend. A cluster of neutral planets that declared independence 200 years ago. Then vanished from maps. Said to be wiped out. But they weren't dead. They were waiting. I looked out the viewport. The stars felt closer than ever. "Plot a course," I said. "Let's go see who else hates the Empire." Parallax Station wasn't what I expected. When someone says Free Sector Armada, you imagine something grand, a hidden fortress glittering with rogue fleets and armed satellites, a place burning with rebellion. But Parallax was a dying rock orbiting a red dwarf, buried in a debris field that looked like a ship graveyard had puked all over the system. Everything creaked. The comms relay lagged like it had been patched together with salvage wire and hope. And the docking corridor smelled like wet rust. But damn if it didn't feel alive. We docked under strict instructions. No weapons drawn, no signals sent, and no names exchanged until cleared. Their security was smart. Paranoid, but smart. Can't blame them. The Empire had a way of getting inside places like this and turning things ugly fast. The crew stayed on board. I went in alone. The moment the airlock hissed open, I was met by 3 guards, none of them human. One had mottled gray skin and 4 eyes that blinked out of sync. The other 2 were stocky, armor-plated insectoids, clicking in a language I didn't even pretend to understand. Then came Varex. He was tall, reptilian, maybe. Bronze-colored skin that shimmered when he moved, and a face full of scar lines that looked earned, not ceremonial. His armor wasn't standard issue. It was patched together from 6 species tech, each piece holding a story. The only thing uniform about him was the way he carried himself, like a predator that had lived too long in a cage and just remembered how to hunt. "Hal Trenken," he said, not asking. "You've made quite the mess." I shrugged. "We prefer to call it an announcement." He didn't laugh. "Walk with me," he said, and turned before I could respond. We moved through winding corridors lit by failing bulbs and emergency strips. Half the station looked like it was under repair. The other half looked like it had always been under repair. "You know," Varex said, "when your Scarhound popped out of the rift and took down an Imperial cruiser in 3 seconds flat, we thought it was a glitch in the war feeds." "Guess the Empire thought the same," I said. "Oh, they didn't think. They panicked." He looked at me, eyes narrowed. "You don't understand what you did. You weren't just a message, or you were a revelation. For 500 years, humans were the joke, the dirt feeders, the ones who couldn't get their own tech without borrowing it from someone else's bones. Now, they're scared of you." He led me into a chamber, old, cold, and full of people. No, not people, species. I counted at least 9, some humanoid, some barely recognizable. Most wore armor, some wore robes. All had eyes on me. Varex raised a clawed hand. "This is the Circle. What passes for leadership around here?" One of them, a thin, metallic-skinned creature with 3 fingers and no visible mouth, pulsed in a weird, harmonic tone. Varex translated. "They want to know if you plan to start a war." I met the Circle's gaze. All of them. "I didn't start anything," I said. "The Empire did. We're just the first ones to say no with our fists." There was a pause. A long, silent pause. Then Varex spoke again. "Half of them want to help you. The other half think you're going to get every last one of us annihilated." I crossed my arms. They're not wrong. That got a reaction. A few of them shifted. One laughed, a wet, bubbling sound. Varex's mouth curled into something like a grin. "Good," he said. "You're not stupid." "No," I said. "Just desperate." Later, in a quieter chamber, Varex poured us both a drink. Black liquid that smoked on contact with air. It tasted like fire and bad memories. "We've been hiding for too long," he said, swirling the drink. "Most of the free sector was built by deserters, refugees, and traitors, people the Empire crushed and left to rot. We've lived in the shadows, picking our battles. But you—" "I kicked the hornet's nest," I finished. He nodded. "And now you've got everyone wondering if it's time to burn it down." I leaned forward. "Is it?" He didn't answer right away. Then, "We have resources, fleets. Not many, but enough to hurt. We know Imperial weak points. We've spent centuries mapping them, but we never had the spark." "And now you think Earth is the spark?" No, he said, looking me dead in the eyes. You are. I exhaled. Damn. I didn't come here to lead a galactic rebellion, Varex, he chuckled. Too late. We made plans that night. Not for full-scale war. That was suicide. But for something better. A disruption. We'd hit where it hurt. Not the Empire's military, but their control. Fuel routes, trade hubs, relay stations. We'd give the galaxy something it hadn't had in centuries, a reason to believe the Empire could lose. Varex promised ships, crews, intelligence. We'd supply the chaos. The Scarhound would strike first. Back aboard my ship, the crew was buzzing. Tyla met me at the ramp, her fingers moving fast. Allies? I nodded. The kind who hate the Empire more than they like us. She smiled. Doctor was in the engine room, elbow deep in the Scarhound's gut. About damn time, he grunted. I'm tired of playing ghost. We won't be ghosts much longer. He looked up, smirking. Good. Let's haunt the bastards proper. We plotted our first hit. It wasn't flashy. No massive fleet battle. Just a precision strike on a trade relay at Gossen's Ring, a place the Empire used to regulate taxes and trade permits for the outer systems. Hitting it would snarl up their economy and show the sector that the Empire wasn't invincible. We jumped in low, silent. The Scarhound was running cool. The Lance had been patched enough for a single charge. Our new allies had jammed the relay's early warning systems for a 30-minute window. That was all we had. 30 minutes to punch a god in the teeth. I sat in the pilot's chair, hands steady, heart racing. Tyla, comms clear? She gave me a thumbs up. Docker Core ready? Hotter than hell and twice as mad. Good. I watched the station grow on screen, sleek, silver and wide like a spider web spun in space. It pulsed with traffic. Civilian haulers, Imperial patrols, all unaware. Fire the Lance. The hum started low, a vibration in the bones. Then, the shot. It screamed through space like a devil's whisper. No explosion. Just impact. The relay core folded in on itself like a black egg cracking. Lights died, ships scattered, signals failed. And in that moment, the Empire stuttered. We turned hard, dumped our remaining fuel, and vanished into the black. No pursuit, no time, just silence. We watched as systems began reporting signal loss. Trade systems froze, colonial ports stopped receiving orders, bureaucrats panicked, and across the galaxy messages spread. A human ship did this. The Scarhound struck Gossen's Ring. They're still out there. We weren't ghosts. We were a problem now. Later that night, I stood alone in the Scarhound's hold, staring at the old Earth flag stitched into the bulkhead. Torn. Faded. But real. We'd been the galaxy's joke. But no one was laughing anymore. And I knew this was just the beginning. Not of a war. But of an uprising, an infection, an idea. You can cage a species. You can chain their tech. Silence their scientists, censor their history. But if you leave them angry long enough, if you beat them down hard enough, they don't die. They evolve. They build ships in the dark. They forge weapons from scraps. And when the time is right, they come back. The Empire didn't stay silent for long. They never do. 2 days after we hit Gossen's Ring, the first reports started coming in. Burned settlements, entire colonies blacked out. Civilians executed, political prisoners taken. They didn't even pretend it was unrelated. Every message, every broadcast, every bleeding corpse they left behind sent one message loud and clear. This is what happens when you make us bleed. They didn't strike back at the Scarhound. No, that would have given us legitimacy. They struck at Earth. They struck at our people. Wren's signal came in just past midnight ship time. I hadn't slept. None of us had. Her face was pale, her lips drawn tight. I could hear shouting in the background. Alarms, static, maybe screams. Hal, you need to listen carefully. They hit the Pacific Crest launch site. Orbital assault. Casualties unknown. They've also locked down New Sahara and the African Freeport zones. They're not playing games anymore. Civilians? I asked, though I already knew. Wren nodded. They didn't spare anyone. They dropped precision charges into apartment blocks, said they were protective actions under galactic mandate enforcement. And the worst part? The Trade Federation approved it. No sanctions, no protests, nothing. My fists clenched under the console. That's how the Empire kept order, not just with guns, but with silence, with complicity. All those so-called neutral factions turned their heads as long as the credits kept flowing. They're coming for your family next, she said, and they're doing it slow, Hal, one district at a time. They want you to watch. I felt it in my stomach. Not guilt. Not shame. Rage. You hold out, I said. We'll give them something worse than fear. We met Varick's 2 systems over in a derelict dry dock orbiting a dead moon. No lights, no defenses, just a leaking tin can of rusted beams and broken promises. But inside? Plans. Varick's had brought in representatives from 5 other free sector fleets. These weren't rebels. They were war dogs, survivors of crushed rebellions, pirates who'd lost entire bloodlines, outcast engineers who'd been exiled for refusing to sell out their tech, and they were angry. I stood before them, Scarhound crew at my back, and told them everything. No speeches, no bravado, just the truth. They're not afraid of us. They're afraid of what we mean. For every species they've crushed, every planet they've silenced, we're proof that obedience isn't permanent. We're proof that cages break. Some nodded, some stared. One spat. But Varick's leaned forward, claws clicking. And what do you want, Hal Trenkin? Not revenge, I said. That's personal. I want collapse. I want the Empire to rot from the inside. From fear, from instability, from their own people doubting they can win. Silence. Then a low rumble of agreement. We weren't soldiers, we were chaos, and it was time to weaponize that. We hit again a week later, this time not with the Scarhound. That would have been expected. Instead, we armed 3 smuggling vessels, old Earth cargo runners, barely space-worthy, with tech too advanced for the Empire to process fast. Static disruptors, low-yield grav bombs, artificial signal ghosts that mimicked pirate fleets. We didn't hit military targets. We hit truth. An Imperial broadcast relay in the Denthan Arc, gone in a firestorm of signal leaks. We hacked the system and aired footage from Earth. Civilians dead in the streets, orphaned kids dragged into custody, Wren standing in the ruins of the Pacific launch hub. We tagged the message with a clear banner. This is the Empire's peace. Earth remembers. Then we vanished. The free sector fleets started moving in tandem. Small strikes, precise. Not war, but infection. One system would lose communications for 30 hours. Another would find their fuel depots sabotaged. A third would receive falsified orders that turned patrol fleets against each other. And behind it all, the Scarhound's name echoed like a ghost story. The Empire started reacting. Hard. They raided more, burned more. Public executions on fringe planets. But it wasn't fear anymore. It was desperation. Their control was slipping. And then, they made it personal. We were running maintenance on the Scarhound when the transmission came in. Encrypted. Scrambled. Almost untraceable. Almost. Tyla patched it through in the war room. She didn't speak, just pointed to the screen. Wren, but not live. Recorded. She was bloodied, one arm bound in makeshift bandages, her face streaked with ash. Hal, I'm not sure this will reach you, but I need to say it anyway. The Empire took my command post. They've moved into South Orbital. They're looking for you. for your ship, for your name. They're not trying to stop you. They're trying to break you, one soul at a time. But listen to me. Don't come back. Don't make a martyr of yourself. This is bigger than us, bigger than Earth. You've started something that's working. They can't fight shadows, Hal. So be one. Strike hard, strike smart, and when you burn them, make it count. Whatever happens to me, promise me it won't be wasted. The screen cut to black. Silence filled the Scarhound. Doctor punched the wall. Tyla turned away, her eyes burning. I just stood there, jaw tight. Prep the lance, I said quietly. Full charge. We're going again. Doctor stepped forward. Hal, you heard her. Don't get emotional. That's what they want. This isn't emotion, I said. This is strategy. We need a bigger fire. Something they can't cover up. Something that'll force their hand. He narrowed his eyes. What are you planning? I looked at the star map. One system lit up red. Soren Prime. A core communications hub for the Empire's eastern quadrant. Shielded. Militarized. Supposedly impenetrable. Which made it perfect. I'm going to erase their voice. We planned it like a heist. Multiple waves. Decoys. Ghost signals. A diversion strike from one of Varex's fleets 3 systems away to draw attention. Then Scarhound would drop in, low and hot, bypassing planetary shields by exploiting a moon's orbit window. Our tech wouldn't let us stay long, but long enough to launch a signal disruptor bomb directly into the main array. We didn't need to destroy the system. We just needed to black it out. Permanently. The night before launch, I walked the Scarhound. Crew was quiet, focused, but I could see it in their eyes. The fear. The weight. They weren't mercenaries. They were humans who'd seen too much and had nowhere left to run. Some had families back on Earth. Some had already lost them. And they were still here. Still fighting. I ended up in the engine bay, sitting on the metal catwalk, legs dangling. The core's faint hum echoed like a heartbeat. Doctor sat beside me after a while, handing me a dented canteen. Tastes like regret, he muttered. But burns good. I drank. It did both. You ever think we'll win? I asked. He shrugged. I don't think it matters. Empire falls or doesn't, we already proved they bleed. That's more than any of us thought we'd live to see. I nodded. It wasn't about victory. It was about truth. Soren Prime came fast. Drop point hit perfect. The Scarhound surged into low orbit under the moon's shadow, our heat signature masked by solar interference. We had 7 minutes before the station's scanners realigned. Tyla jammed their comms. Doctor released the drone. It zipped out, carrying the disruptor bomb, a device built from 3 salvaged wormhole cores and a gravity stabilizer we'd stolen from a crashed Empire warship. It wasn't beautiful. It was barely legal to exist. But it worked. The moment it breached the array structure, the sky lit up, silent but blinding. Then darkness. Total blackout across Soren Prime. No signals, no orders, no Empire. We turned and burned hard, slipping back into the void before their backup could even respond. The news spread like wildfire. The Empire had lost control of its most critical broadcast system. Dozens of sectors went dark. Their propaganda machine stuttered. For hours, entire systems thought the Empire had collapsed. And in that vacuum, we spoke. Tyla broadcast a single message, raw, unfiltered, and translated into over 80 known galactic dialects. This is not the end. This is the beginning. We are the fire you feared. We are the storm you denied. And we are everywhere. But I knew what came next. Retaliation. The question was, how far would the Empire go? And would the galaxy finally see their true face? Because if they did, they might just stop looking at us like rebels and start seeing us as a new future. We knew it was coming. The moment Soren Prime went dark, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Trade froze, patrols vanished from fringe sectors, even pirate attacks dipped. Everyone, from smugglers to senators, waited to see how the Empire would answer. We didn't have to wait long. It came 3 days later. Not through a transmission, not through a fleet, not even through a diplomatic envoy with threats wrapped in legal excuses. It came through fire. Earth's moon, Luna, shattered. Not metaphorically, literally. A high-yield kinetic rod dropped from an orbital carrier nobody even knew existed. No warning, no declaration of war, just a slender piece of tungsten traveling at several kilometers per second, slamming into Luna's core and turning it into a debris cloud that now orbits Earth like a slow, quiet funeral. We watched it from the Scarhound. Watched as billions of tons of rock ruptured, fractured, and scattered into orbit. Not fast enough to rain down, not yet, but enough to darken the sky, enough to show the whole system that Earth wasn't safe anymore. The Empire didn't say a word. They didn't need to. That was the point. The crew sat in silence. No one moved. Not even Docker. I stood in the middle of the command deck, staring at the grainy feed we'd intercepted from Earth-based observatories. The moon was gone, just a bleeding halo of dust and ruin where it used to be. Tyla had tears running down her cheeks. She wasn't even trying to hide it. Doctor punched the metal wall so hard his knuckles split. "Cowards," he muttered. "They didn't even have the guts to face us." I didn't speak. Couldn't, because deep down I knew the truth. They weren't cowards. They were masters of fear, and they had just reminded every soul in the galaxy that no rebellion came without a price. And Luna? Luna was the invoice. We got confirmation from Wren's Underground later that night. Casualties minimal. Lunar colonies were evacuated last month under suspicion of surveillance. They didn't get us. But they wanted the message sent. And it worked. Half the outer colonies are calling for ceasefire. The free sector's bleeding support. The worst part? Some humans, the comfortable ones, the cowards, started blaming us. They called us reckless, said we provoked it, said we were dragging Earth into a war it couldn't win. And maybe they were right. But we were past that now. This wasn't about blame, it was about choice. Varex called a war meeting. The Free Sector leaders arrived at Parallax Station in person this time. No transmissions, no projections. They wanted to look each other in the eye, smell the fear, taste the blood in the air. I stood before them, pulse steady, hands behind my back. Varex opened the floor. The Empire has drawn a line. Luna was not a mistake. It was a signal. They want the galaxy to know. Rebellion leads to annihilation. One of the alien generals, Muthrix, a cold-eyed creature with bone armor and a voice like grinding ice, stood up. They are testing us. We must answer. Harder, louder. Take their core worlds. Burn their archives. Hack their genetic banks and ruin their elite. Another, a grizzled ex-officer from a fallen aquatic race, shook her head. That's suicide. Every time we hit them, they strike back tenfold. It's no longer just about fighting. It's about surviving. Arguments sparked, screams, shouts, fists slammed tables, weapons were drawn and lowered again, but no consensus came. Finally, they looked to me, the human, the accidental symbol, the man who broke the rift and turned the galaxy upside down. I didn't give a speech, I gave a warning. Backing down now, I said, will not save us. You think the Empire wants peace? They want obedience, and Luna proves it. They don't want compromise, they want silence. And if we give them that, they'll bury us in it. Silence fell. I stepped forward. We can't win this war the way they expect. We can't outgun them. But we can outthink them. We hit their AI nexuses, their data cores, They're cloning centers. We make their tech turn on them. We break their trust in their own systems. If they want to play gods, let's make the heavens burn under their feet. Varex nodded. Muthrix grinned. And the free sector, fractured and wounded, found its resolve again. We set our eyes on the Solace Spire, an imperial archive world, heavily fortified, rarely visited, but absolutely vital. It housed over 400 years of genetic records, cloning data, behavioral algorithms, and social engineering protocols, the backbone of the Empire's manipulation machine. Destroy it, and they'd lose not just soldiers, but control. But this wasn't like the relay station. This was a fortress. We'd need help, and we got it, from the unlikeliest source. His name was Kieran, an Imperial defector, one of their internal architects. High-level clearance, deep knowledge of their social control systems. He contacted us through an anonymous feed, offering access codes and intel in exchange for one thing. Let me watch them fall. He'd worked on Luna's targeting data, had signed off on it, believing the colony had been evacuated. When he found out about the children still in the deep mines, he put a railgun in his superior's mouth. Didn't pull the trigger, but he wanted to. And now, he was with us. With Kieran's codes and Varex's ships, we launched the Ghost Protocol, our most dangerous mission yet. 3 infiltration ships, 1 Scarhound, 1 shot. If we failed, we'd all die in orbit. If we succeeded, the Empire would lose everything it used to understand its citizens. We launched at dusk, system standard time. We rode solar shadows into the upper orbit, slipped past their scanners with quantum cloaks barely stable enough to hold. The archive tower stood like a needle stabbing the stars, miles high, bristling with defensive batteries and black-mirrored drones. Scarhound wouldn't survive a direct attack. So we didn't attack. We infected. Tyla and Kieran uploaded a virus, written by rogue AIs abandoned decades ago, now rebuilt with human spite and raw alien logic. It didn't destroy the data. It rewrote it. Thousands of citizen profiles warped, high command bloodlines corrupted, entire planetary models scrambled. By the time they realized what was happening, it was already over. We jumped out as their drones started firing on each other, confused, enraged, unable to tell friend from foe. And behind us, the Solace Spire went dark. What followed wasn't victory. It was chaos. Imperial governors turned on each other, unsure who to trust. Cloned units failed to obey commands. Digital propaganda collapsed under algorithmic failure. And in the confusion, rebellions started to rise. On planets we'd never touched, on stations we'd never visited, in species we didn't know existed. Because chaos spreads fast. And freedom spreads faster. But back on Earth, the cost was rising. Wren's next message was short. They've declared open occupation. Earth is no longer a protectorate. It's under direct military control. Dissent is being purged. Trenken, if you're still breathing, we need you. My blood froze. Earth. My home. They weren't just fighting back now. They were conquering. This wasn't about stopping the Scarhound anymore. It was about owning humanity. So I made the decision. One the crew wouldn't like. One the free sector would call reckless. One Wren might not survive. We're going back, I said. Doctor blinked. To Earth? Yes, he exhaled, jaw clenching. And we're doing what? Talking to them? I looked him in the eye. We're going to remind the Empire that Earth doesn't kneel, it erupts. Coming back to Earth felt like betrayal. Not because we were scared, but because we had to sneak back. The cradle of humanity, the birthplace of our entire goddamn species, and we couldn't even approach it under our own name. We had to wrap the Scarhound in a dampening cloak, mask her drive signature, and ride the edge of the Kuiper Belt like criminals just to get within scanning range. The planet looked the same from orbit. Blue oceans, brown scars of mountains, the familiar swirl of weather systems spinning like they didn't give a damn what was happening on the ground. But the lights were wrong. The night side of the Earth used to glitter, cities burning with life, glowing like stubborn fireflies. Now, just grids, cold, calculated patterns, military-grade infrastructure. The human soul had been scrubbed out and replaced with imperial order. Doctor stood beside me in the observation pod, arms crossed. "This place used to breathe," he said. "Now it chokes." Tyla didn't say anything. She just stared, her fingers twitching like she was restraining the urge to punch the entire sky. I felt it too. Rage. But rage wasn't enough anymore. Rage was gasoline. And if you didn't pour it on the right fire, it just stank up the room. We needed precision now. The plan was simple. We'd drop into Sector 9, Old Detroit, now called Zone 3E, under the Empire's reclassification map. It was supposed to be a development zone, but all the intercepted footage said otherwise. Ren was there, still alive, still fighting, still running resistance from the underbelly. We were going to find her, or die trying. We came down through a sewer outflow line just south of the broken river systems. The Scarhound stayed cloaked, drifting in low Earth orbit under satellite blind spots Kieran had mapped out. The old city was buried under modular towers now, prefab blocks stacked like prison cells, all gray steel and zero windows. Drones buzzed in perfect formations, checkpoints every 2 blocks. Civilians walked in single-file lines, escorted by mech suits with stun staffs. "Obedience is prosperity," read the digital signs. Doctor spat. "Prosperity my ass." We moved fast, dressed in civilian garb, stitched with heat-dampening mesh. Tyla ran point, ducking behind rubble and guiding us through old tunnel systems too small for the Empire to patrol. We slipped past 3 checkpoints, nearly got pinged by a sensor drone, and finally reached the hideout, an old manufacturing plant beneath the ruins of what used to be a football stadium. When the blast door opened and I saw Ren, I nearly didn't recognize her. She'd lost weight. Hair cropped short. Bruise under one eye, left arm in a makeshift sling. But her eyes? Still sharp, still defiant. "About time," she rasped. "What did you do? Take the scenic route through hell?" I hugged her. She didn't hug back, but she didn't shove me off either. Progress. Ren briefed us in a room lit by cracked fluorescence and the glow of 4 stolen Imperial data cores. "Since the Luna strike, they've tightened the leash," she said. "Declared full martial law. Every major city has been split into quadrants, curfews, movement restrictions, selective detainments. They're not just occupying, they're testing something." "What kind of something?" I asked. She nodded to one of her techs, a kid no older than 19, with eyes like he hadn't slept since childhood. He pulled up a feed. It showed civilians being ushered into pods, black, coffin-like chambers with neural interfaces attached to their skulls. "Reconditioning," Ren said flatly. "They're rewriting human memory, erasing trauma, suppressing emotion, teaching obedience on a neurological level." I stared. "How many?" "Thousands, maybe more, and it's scaling." Tyla looked sick. Doctor looked ready to punch through a wall. "They're not just enslaving us," I said. "They're rewriting us." Ren nodded. "They want a humanity that won't fight back." I walked alone that night, through the wreckage of what used to be neighborhoods, found a wall with names scratched into the stone, some with birth years, some with blood stains. I found my name. Hal Trenken, carved by someone, probably as a message or a memorial. I stood there, wondering if I was already dead in someone's eyes. And if that was true, what did that make me now? We couldn't stay long. The Scarhound could only remain cloaked for 36 hours before the generator burned out. We had one shot. So we did what we came to do. We broadcast, hijacked a military signal, and forced it into every screen on Earth. Public, private, military grade. Everything. I stood in front of the camera. No mask, no voice filter. I wanted them to see me, to know. This is Hal Trenken. I was born on Earth, raised in the ruins of cities you abandoned. I watched friends die because the Empire said we weren't worth saving, and now you come back, not to help, but to rewrite us? You dropped rods on Luna, you burned our homes, you slaughtered our people, and you still think you can win? You've mistaken silence for surrender. But hear me now. We are not your subjects. We are not your cattle. We are the storm you cannot cage. We are the future you tried to erase. And we're still here. The feed cut just as the first pulse bombs detonated across 6 Empire control nodes. Tyla's sabotage code triggered instant cascade failures. Lights flickered. Towers shook. We didn't stay to see the smoke. We ran. They came after us hard. Gunships, drones, local patrols with kill orders. But the Scarhound came in screaming. Broke through the clouds like a god's hammer, disabled a patrol carrier mid-air, and blasted an extraction tunnel with pinpoint gravity pressure. We made it aboard with seconds to spare. As we broke orbit, Earth's night side flickered, not with Empire lights, but with fires. The people were rising. Finally. Back in orbit, Doctor leaned over the console and pointed to the comms. Hal, you need to see this. It was a transmission from a species we hadn't heard from before. Tall, angular-faced beings with dark gray skin and red eyes, the Rethari, a silent Empire protectorate since long before Earth entered the scene. And their message? We saw what you did. We saw what they did. And we remember too. Our weapons are yours. The Empire has forgotten its place. It was happening. We'd hit the turning point. This wasn't a rebellion anymore. It was a reckoning. But deep down, I knew. The Empire wouldn't go down without one final, unthinkable move. And we'd need more than ships to survive it. We'd need to become something the galaxy had never seen before. The Rethari weren't bluffing. In the week that followed our broadcast from Earth, their fleet joined the Free Sector Armada in open defiance. Not just whispers anymore. Not sabotage. War. 10 systems erupted in flame. Empire supply lines were severed. Their clone fields on Nargoth 7 were sabotaged. And 2 high command generals were executed by their own disillusioned officers during a routine inspection. The galaxy was tilting. Finally. But the one thing I'd learned in this war, the Empire doesn't tilt without planning where it wants to fall. And it doesn't bleed without finding someone to bleed for it. We were orbiting above Varnak 5, an independent system that had declared neutrality for centuries, now being courted by both the Free Sector and the Empire when the transmission came through. Not intercepted. Addressed directly to me. Hal Trenken, this is Command Seer Atrian of the Imperial Resolution Council. The feed was cold. A room of white walls, lit by sterile overhead light. And in the middle, Atrian, an elderly-looking man with dark gray skin, thin white hair, and blue eyes that didn't blink enough. He looked more like a librarian than a tyrant. But I'd heard the name before. Atrian wasn't a general. He was a designer, one of the architects of the Empire's psychological warfare divisions. His job wasn't to fight rebels. His job was to break them. You've done well, he said, smiling faintly. You've made your mark. Earth has risen. Allies have flocked. But all that you've gained is about to become your prison. He gestured off-screen. The feed cut to a visual. My blood ran cold. Ren, in chains, kneeling, blood down her temple, face swollen. You know who she is to you, Atrian said. "You know what she means to Earth, to your people, and here is my offer." He leaned forward, eyes sharp like scalpels. "You surrender. You dismantle the Scarhound. You walk into custody willingly, and she lives. You walk away, and we execute her, on live broadcast, with your name as the trigger." Silence. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Doctor stepped beside me. "Hal, this is a trap, you know that." Tyla didn't move, just stared at the screen, her hands shaking. Then the feed cut. Just like that. Wren gone. And I had a choice to make. I sat alone in the Scarhound's core chamber for hours. No light, no sound but the slow thrum of the ship's artificial heart. This wasn't a battlefield decision. This wasn't tactics. This was personal. The crew knew me. They knew I'd never cave. But this wasn't about me. Wren had led Earth's resistance when I was still welding smuggler panels to my cargo hold. She was the backbone, the voice, the reason so many still believed we had a chance. She didn't just matter to me. She mattered to everyone. And if they killed her, they wouldn't just silence a leader, they'd fracture the movement. I had to decide, but before I could, the betrayal found me. Tyla burst into the chamber like a bullet. No knock, no warning, just rage. Her fingers flew with speed that barely made sense. "It's Docker. He's gone. So's the drive key for the Scarhound." My brain snapped into action like a reflex. "What do you mean gone?" "His bunk's empty, escape pod 3's missing, and the primary drive key, the one that lets the Scarhound interface with our cloaking core. It's not in the vault." I was on my feet in seconds. Checked the systems. Dead end. Docker's access codes had been wiped from our logs. That meant someone had helped him, or he'd planted a backdoor we never saw. We scanned the nearest quadrant, found the escape pod adrift in a decoy signal lane 2 hours later. It was empty. No Docker, just a recorded message. I stood in the comms bay and watched it twice before I believed it. "Hal, you're going to hate me. You're going to want to kill me, that's fine." Docker's voice was strained, like he'd been holding this in for years. "I didn't want it to be like this, but I can't keep pretending this ends with us winning. You think the Empire's bleeding? They're not. They're adapting. They've already got sleeper agents in your fleet. They've already cracked 3 of our encryption codes. We're buying time, not victory. But they made me an offer. 1 life, yours, for a ceasefire. Earth gets to rebuild. The colonies get left alone. Wren lives. You die. That's the math." He looked directly at the recorder, eyes broken but calm. "I stole the key so you couldn't jump, so you couldn't run. I'm transmitting your location now. I hope you understand. I never stopped believing in you, but I had to believe in humanity more." The feed ended. Tyla stood in the corner, fists clenched. I stared at the screen until the image burned into my retinas. Then I smashed the console with my fist until my knuckles split. He didn't betray us for power. He betrayed us for hope, the kind the Empire sells to traitors like it's mercy. But I wasn't going to let that be the end. Not like this. We rerouted the Scarhound's controls manually, bypassing the cloaking core. It would burn out our heat signature masking system. We'd be vulnerable, fully exposed. But we had no choice. We tracked the signal back to a black site orbiting the shadow side of Altheus, a rogue planet used by the Empire for off-grid experiments. It wasn't a prison. It was a lab. When we arrived, the defense systems were already hot. They knew we were coming. Didn't matter. We powered the lance, charged the core, and punched a hole straight through their perimeter shield. The Scarhound roared like a demon through the clouds, tearing gun platforms apart and releasing every war drone we had. Varex's auxiliary strike team dropped in behind us, wreaking chaos. We didn't come to negotiate. We came to take Wren back. Inside the facility, the halls were metal and silence. No guards, no sirens, just rows and rows of holding pods, each one filled with a person wired into memory suppression machines. Humans, Rithari, others I didn't recognize. And at the far end, Ren, eyes open, bloodied, but alive. We got her out, ripped the harnesses off. She blinked up at me through dazed eyes. "Didn't expect rescue?" she mumbled. I smiled through the burning in my throat. Guess I'm still full of surprises. We left nothing behind. The facility was ash by the time we reached orbit. But Docker? Gone. No trace, no signal. Just a void where a friend used to be. Back aboard the Scarhound, Ren slept. Her body needed healing, but her spirit, still burning. I sat in the observation deck, watching the stars, thinking of everything we'd lost, and everything still left to lose. Tyla joined me, signed slowly. What now? I stared into the dark, and I said the words I'd been holding back since Luna shattered. Now we end it. The stars ahead didn't blink. They just stared, cold, silent, and uncaring. Perfect backdrop for a suicide mission. We were headed for Calorex, the Empire's true capital, not the one they showed in vids with gold spires and parades, but the real one, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid so massive it created its own gravity well. This is where they ran their war. This is where they made their decisions. This is where they controlled everything. And we were going to punch a hole right through its spine. No free sector backup, no allies, just the Scarhound, a half-functioning crew of rebels, and one final shot. Because this wasn't about war anymore. It was about justice. Ren stood beside me in the control chamber. Her injuries hadn't fully healed, but she didn't ask to stay behind. "I have to see it," she said, "even if it kills me." I didn't argue. She earned that right. Tyla sat at comms, scanning for incoming threats. Doctor's absence still weighed on her, but she was silent now. Focused. Sharp. We all were. The Scarhound wasn't in her prime. Her systems were barely holding together, and her weapon core had maybe one clean charge left before it fried itself into slag. So we planned to make it count. The Empire had moved fast after the Altheus facility was destroyed. Their media blamed us for killing civilians, spun Ren as a rogue war criminal, said I'd destabilized peace across 43 systems. But they'd overplayed their hand. Too many people had seen the truth. Too many knew what we were really fighting for. We weren't just the Scarhound anymore. We were the spark. And now it was time to turn that spark into a blaze. Calorex was surrounded by 6 defense rings. Automated turrets, drone fleets, sensor buoys, enough firepower to reduce a planet to ash. We knew we couldn't beat them in a straight fight, so we didn't. Instead, we played our last card. The Mirage Drive. An unstable tech built by Kieran before he died. It created temporary phase duplicates of a ship. Ghosts. Real enough to draw fire, illusion strong enough to be mistaken for a fleet. We activated it the moment we hit the outer ring. Suddenly, 12 Scarhounds appeared across the battlefield, weaving, diving, charging. The Empire panicked. We watched their fire control split, drones diverted, turrets overloaded. Confusion rippled across their command net, right where we wanted them. We slipped through the chaos, hugging the shadow of a mining strut, then blasted straight toward the command sector. A black needle buried deep in the asteroid's core. The command dome sat at the end of a narrow vent tunnel, sealed by an energy gate powered by 3 capacitor nodes. We couldn't land. We couldn't dock. So we aimed. Ren leaned toward me, her voice rough. "One shot?" "One shot." Tyla aligned the Scarhound's lance. Doctor had built it, modified it, sacrificed everything to protect the ship it powered, and now it would speak for him. I gave the order. "Fire!" The lance screamed through the void like the voice of a dying god. It pierced the first shield, then the second, then hit the third gate with a surge of white-hot energy so dense it folded the core in on itself. The Scarhound's entire system went dark. But we were through. We crash-landed in the outer chamber, metal screaming, sparks raining down, smoke choking the air. The Scarhound's spine cracked, but she held together just long enough to let us out. Then her core finally gave out, and she went still. No fanfare, no explosion, just a soft hiss, like a machine exhaling. I paused before the ramp, ran my hand along her scorched hull. "You did good, girl," I whispered. "You did good." Then I drew my weapon and led my crew into hell. The command dome was barely guarded. They didn't expect anyone to get through the outer defenses. That was their mistake. We moved like ghosts, fast, precise. Tyla took out 3 guards before they even looked up. Ren hacked into their security feed and looped it with footage of an empty hallway. We moved deeper, found the central control room, and inside, Atrian. Calm, waiting, and beside him, Doctor, alive, unchained, wearing an Imperial Commander's badge on his chest. Time froze. I felt the weight of every moment crash into my chest. He didn't look ashamed, didn't even look surprised. He just sighed. "Hal." "Don't," I said, leveling my weapon. "Don't say my name." He nodded slowly. "I figured you'd get here eventually. I was hoping it'd be later." Atrian stepped forward. "This doesn't have to end in blood." I laughed once, sharp, bitter. "You destroyed Luna. You reprogrammed children. You tried to erase my species. And you think we're still negotiating?" He held up a hand. "I'm offering truth, for once." He turned toward a console and tapped a command. A screen lit up, rows of data, DNA strings, behavioral charts, psychological profiles, Earth. They'd mapped us down to the neuron. Atrian spoke, his voice too calm. "Humanity is unfit for integration, too volatile, too emotional, too resistant to collective purpose. You think this war is about control. It isn't. It's about containment." He looked at me like a man explaining basic math. "You're a virus, one that inspires others to reject peace in favor of chaos. You make them think rebellion is survival." I stepped closer. "No. You think obedience is peace. You think fear is order." I looked at Docker. "And you believed him?" He looked old, tired, but unflinching. "I believed in the result. You were going to die. You were going to take everyone down with you. I tried to give Earth another option. You gave them our freedom." He didn't answer. Ren moved to the console, yanked a drive out of her pack, and jammed it in. A virus, written with the help of the Rethery, built to overwrite the Empire's control grid. It would collapse their mind control systems, wipe their memory banks, and release every file they'd buried for the last 500 years. But it had to be manually triggered, and that meant staying behind. Tyla stepped forward, signed quickly. "I'll do it," I shook my head. "No." Ren touched my shoulder. "Then I will." I looked at them both, the 2 people who'd stood beside me through everything. And I realized something. I couldn't lose them. Not now. Not after all of this. So I made the only choice that felt right. I walked toward the console, entered the code, locked the system, turned back to them. "This is on me, always has been." Tyla tried to stop me. Ren's eyes filled with rage, but I just smiled. "You go." And they did. Atrian made no move to stop me. He knew, he understood sacrifice. He just never expected a human to be willing to pay the price. "You'll die in obscurity," he said. I shrugged. "Then let me fade loud." I hit the trigger. The virus unleashed like fire. Alarms screamed, lights shattered, consoles sparked. Files began dissolving in real time. Calorex's entire digital command system. Gone. I turned to Atrian. He stood still, then said quietly, "It doesn't matter. There will always be another Hal Trenken, another spark," I nodded. "That's the point." And then the core detonated. They say the explosion lit up the edge of the galaxy. They say the Scarhound's crew escaped, barely, carried in a broken dropship through the debris field. They say Wren lived, that she rebuilt Earth, that she carried forward the rebellion not as war, but as culture. And Docker? He died in the blast with me. By choice, not redemption, just regret. My name won't be remembered in the way Atrian thought it wouldn't. It'll be remembered like a warning, like a promise, like a whisper in the halls of every planet where someone is told to kneel, that humans weren't supposed to have ships like that, weren't supposed to fight like that, weren't supposed to win, and yet, here we are.